Hey guys, welcome back to Uncensored. My name is Cosmo. Today I fell upon a very interesting video of H3H3 and JustPearlyThings having a debate about slavery. I do not want to spoil the video, so let's just jump right into it.
This comment I thought was interesting, and tell me what you think about it.
This sounds similar to the slavery stuff too, because that's literally the founder of, or the guy who made Roots said, I wanted a myth for my people to live by. So they often, but that's what they do, is they embellish, and I'm not trying to say it wasn't horrible, it was,
right,
but they want to make it like more horrible so that they can control people.
So in what way was slavery made to seem more horrible than it was?
That is a great question from H3H3. I'm curious to hear what she's going to respond.
We were talking about, and I don't really want to go into this too much because we're kind of past this.
Guys, when you observe JustPearlyThings' body language, you notice that she's uncomfortable. Now, there are three reasons to why she could be uncomfortable. The first reason is that she doesn't believe that she can stand up for what she said. The second reason is that she feels that she doesn't know enough about it to be able to articulate herself. The third reason could also be that she feels as if she's getting attacked by H3H3. Now, if you have put out a comment out there into the universe, you should be able to stand by that comment, because that's the only way you get to grow, because you have to take your argument against someone else and see if your argument stands. But you can clearly see that she cannot stand for what she believes in, and that shows in her body language.
But I was quoting a Thomas Sowell book.
Okay, she said she was quoting the book, which is fine. If you sit down and you read a book and you decide to quote that book, that means that book must have had an impact in you. That means you resonate with that book. That means you understand the philosophy of that book. That means you understand the message of that book. Now, if you put out a quote out there taken from the book, you should be able to stand by that quote. You should be able to defend it. Why am I wrong, guys? Comment below what you think.
So.
Okay.
Who's that?
Yeah, so Thomas Sowell's an author who talks about the history of slavery. So.
Thomas Sowell. Oh, but do you agree with that premise that slavery was embellished, or no?
I never knew H3H3 could be so forward. He asked her, was slavery embellished, yes or no? He doesn't want to beat around the bush. And that is a great way to see if someone can stand by what they say or not.
I think that there are parts that are under-embellished and there are parts that are over-embellished. I think it just depends what we're talking about.
That's so interesting. I've got to know what was over-embellished about slavery.
Oh, that is a great question from H3H3. If you are going to be sitting there and saying part of history of slavery was over-embellished and under-embellished, you as a person should be able to pinpoint what part of slavery history was over and under-embellished. It's as simple as that.
Just like one example, I'm dying to know.
Me too, H3H3. I am dying to know too.
Yeah, I just rather, I mean, I was talking about a book that I read, and I think to understand the context, you'd have to read the book.
But you just said some parts were embellished, some parts were under-embellished.
I just, again...
Are you retracting that?
That is actually a good question from H3H3. Is she retracting what she's trying to say? Because if you're going to read a book that says that slavery was under and over embellished, you should be able to pinpoint what part of the book said that it was over and under embellished. It's as simple as that. But yet she couldn't answer the simple question.
I'd really just rather not.
You know, the funny thing about it is JustPearlyThings is a big person. What do I mean by that is she has a big platform. And the rhetoric that she's saying, other people are going to listen to it and they are going to go out there and say the same thing.
Okay. No, but slavery being embellished, that's so interesting. I don't know how you embellish it.
There are certain facts that we're not allowed to talk about.
Like what? I would love to. We're doing the taboos.
No,
we're mixing it up. It's red pill, baby.
Yeah, what part are we not allowed to talk about? I want to know. I'm curious. I'm with H3H3 on this one. I'm so curious Just Pearly Things, what part of slavery that was over and under embellished? I'm curious to know. A lot of people are curious to know.
Let's see the world as it is.
Taboo topics.
I genuinely want to know how it was embellished.
Yeah.
What can't we talk about? Come on.
I mean, I could show you the video I was quoting, but it's just, I'd rather not get into this, so.
Sounds like a blue pilled attitude to me.
Yeah. It sounds like a blue pill attitude to me too. Oh, H3H3 is on fire. I'm never going to lie.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping this was like a good faith interview.
Wait, what's bad faith? I'm literally showing you clips of you saying stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. What about this interview has been bad faith?
Yeah, what part of the interview is in bad faith? He asked you questions about something you said, and you can't stand by it. How is that in bad faith? You said something out there, you should be able to defend it and stand by it, but yet you didn't. So how is that his fault? He never told you to say those stuff.
I just think you're kind of trying to push an agenda, and you're not. Yeah, I just think you're trying to push.
That's a clip of you saying that. You can disavow it. That'd be super easy to say I was wrong.
Interview where I'm quoting somebody.
If you are going to quote somebody, you should be able to defend that quote. Because you resonate with that quote enough for you to be able to quote it out there to the world too.
Like, if you watch the full interview, I am quoting somebody. And now you're trying to pin me down about a topic that I don't dive into.
JustPearlyThings, if you do not dive into conversations like this, why did you put that quote out there? Why did you say slavery was over and under embellished?
Hold on.
So it's like,
hold on,
that's not the point of my channel.
Okay, so
the point of my channel isn't.
I know, but you said it. How is that bad faith?
Yeah, I agree with H3H3. You said it. How is that bad faith?
Hold on, let me see.
Okay, because I was talking about how the founder of the Thomas Sowell talks about how the guy that made Roots talked about how it was a myth for his people to live by.
Does Pearly Things know that mythology is not a lie? It could be the truth. It could be also something that inspired people to do better, to be better.
Okay.
That's what the guy who made Roots said, Alex Haley.
Okay.
So, and I can't even talk about that on a podcast without being canceled by the internet.
Yeah, but mythology, you know, myth doesn't necessarily mean it's a lie, right?
Listen, guys, it feels like H3H3 and we are synced because he said the same thing that I said. Mythology doesn't have to be a lie. It could be the truth. And the truth of the matter is slavery did happen and it was horrendous.
Just because mythology is like a culture,
right, but
a
I'm
history.
saying that doesn't mean the way it's depicted in the movie was how it actually happened.
Yeah, I agree with Pearly Things that the way it was depicted in the movie is not the way it happened because it was actually worse. The movie did not really dive into how horrible it was. So before she speaks, she should be able to think. A movie is just a sample of reality. It's just a sample, it's not the real thing.
And that's what he was talking about on the book. But again, I was quoting a book and you're trying to like pin me down on quoting a book.
Just Pearly Thing, H3H3 is not pinning you down. He's just curious to know what you meant by slavery is over and under embellish. It's as simple as that. What do you...
Let me watch this again and see if I'm doing that.
Stuff too, because that's literally the founder of, or the guy who made Roots said I wanted a myth for my people to live by.
Yeah.
So they often, but that's what they do is they embellish.
So then you say, but here's what they do.
And I'm not trying to say it wasn't horrible.
I'm not trying to say it wasn't horrible.
Right. But they want to make it like more horrible.
But they want to make it more horrible.
That they can control people.
So that they can control people.
I'm curious to know, what does she mean by the myth is used for that they can control people? The myth is used so that the black people themselves can rise up and stand for themselves.
Right, but
Nick Fuentes agrees, by the way.
Wait, oh my gosh. 5 minutes before I say Sowell talks about this in his book. So I'm communicating in the interview that I'm quoting an author.
You're not being honest.
I love the fact that H3H3 calls her out on her bullshit. She's not being honest.
You say I they do this to. Okay, so you disavow. Just disavow it then. That's easy. Just say, I don't think slavery was embellished. I mean, that's super easy. That's like a layup.
Yeah, I agree with H3H3 there. Either you defend it or you retract. As simple as that.
Do you agree? You know what I mean? It's like, just
I
say you
think
don't think slavery was embellished.
I think there are certain facts that you're not allowed to talk about. I don't really want to talk about it today.
But that roots was what is a myth?
Again, there are certain facts you're not allowed to talk about, and I don't really feel like getting into it today.
She said there are some facts that they're not allowed to talk about. What facts is it that she's not allowed to talk about? I'm curious to know. Am I the only one curious to know? Comment below if you're curious to know.
Thomas Sowell compared Barack Obama to Adolf Hitler. Do you like that analogy?
Woo! H3H3 is on fire. I'm curious to know what is going to be her answer.
That's the author you're quoting.
Hmm.
Do you think that's a fair analogy?
That's a quite one-sided way to write his whole work, but he wrote like 100 books.
Oh, I'm just asking you, do you agree with that statement?
Do you agree with that statement? Yes or no? If you don't, you say I don't. If you do, you say I do. It's as simple as that.
No.
Okay.
It's not hard to answer a yes or no question. And truth to be told, most of the questions say yes or no question. And she just answered this one. She says, no, I don't agree with him. Barack Obama is not as bad as Hitler. Simple as that. I hope she gets to answer the other questions too.
See, it's not hard. It's not hard. That's awesome. That's easy to do. You also said George Washington was viewed from his slaves like a father. I guess that's part of what the part of the myth, I guess, is that not all slave owners were evil. Some were father figures like George Washington.
I'm curious about her answer. She says George Washington was a father figure to the slaves. What does she mean by that?
Did you say that?
H3H3 got JustPearlyThings speechless. She's out of words. She has nothing to say.
I don't remember.
I'll pull
I think like if someone's a great and powerful man in history to the point like they're talking about him hundreds of years later, he didn't have any kids. But like,
did he own slaves?
What?
Did he own slaves? George Washington.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, no, real man to me. I'm just saying.
No, it's actually interesting. He had a different, like he inherited his slaves, and it wasn't as simple as he could have just like let them go, because the debt that's incurred on them, like you can't just release them. And so his slaves actually, like he had a really good relationship with them, and they considered him like a dad.
I have a question for JustPearlyThings. If she thinks that the slave had a good relationship with George Washington, why did the slave try to run away from George Washington?
What's your source for that?
That is a great question from H3H3. What is your source for that? Because you can't say stuff like that without having a source of which you get your information from.
That was from a Thomas Sowell book.
Thomas Sowell. So he's your guy. Thomas Sowell's the man. Thomas Sowell wrote a column about supporting segregation in public schools.
Truth to be told, a lot of people were for segregation, such as Malcolm X. The reason why they wanted segregation is because they wanted black people to do things for themselves. And Malcolm X said it so poetically. He said, if a black man is left to do something for himself, he will be able to figure it out, instead of asking the white man all the time, hey, can you help me with this? Hey, can you help me with this? You understand? So it's just... So I think a lot of people were for it and were not for it. Truth to be told, I think that is a very interesting question, and that question requires a real amount of thinking to be able to articulate it properly.
George Washington.
You want me to apologize? Like, you want me to talk about every single one of this man's opinions?
No, I just want I just want to know what you think.
No, PearlyThings, we don't want you to apologize. We are just curious to know what you think. Where did you come up with all these ideas, and where did you come up with all this philosophy? You know, if you're gonna say something, you should be able to stand by it. That's as simple as that.
Do you think racism was embellished? I mean, it's so easy. I mean, just say no.
I think there was a time where I started to read accounts from actual slaves. So these were like in like the And I can't really talk about this. Like, even if I talk about this now, they're going to clip it. They're going to say things I didn't say. But it's like, I used to read actual slave accounts, and I was surprised how many didn't say bad things about their owners after they were free.
Mm-hmm.
I have come to understand that JustPearlyThings does not think when she speaks. She said the slaves were not talking bad things about their owners. Truth to be told, the slave, when they were free, they had no education. The only thing they could do is work the field. And guess who hired them? Their own owners, and paid them less than $1. They worked from morning to night and got paid less than $1, and they were not treated as equal as other people.
And it's not to say, like, slavery was a horrible institution, but I can't talk about that fact without getting canceled. I can't say, hey, these slaves had a good relationship with their owners without getting canceled.
Because it's not true. Because it's just not true. It's not true. George Washington was not a father figure to his slaves.
Because it's not true, Pearly Things. What you're saying is not something that happened in history.
Well, if you look up, like, I think it was Booker
47, let's see, 47 of George Washington's slaves tried to escape. Would you try to escape if you loved your master?
Maybe that one.
How can someone be a father figure to you when they have you on chain? When they treat you like a cattle, like a dog? How can they be your father figure? You have to obey them because they're in a position of power. It's as simple as that. I don't understand how she doesn't think about that.
Was wrong. I don't know. This was like
okay.
a little bit on a podcast months ago. I don't really remember, but
guys, this is the end of the video. Pearly Thing and H3H3 has nothing to talk about. They started arguing, so I decided to end the video here. If you liked the video, thank you. If you did not, comment below so I can become better. Anyways, take care, be safe, and bye.